So in the bulletin, of course, we were talking about those two big rallies held by François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy, who, according to the papers, was the winner of those.
Well, Le Parisien reckons that at least in terms of numbers, it was a draw. Here they both are on the front page. Sarkozy looking quite triumphant, and Hollande also up there on that stage with about 100,000 people there. They reckon there were probably also about 100,000 people in the Place de la Concorde for Sarkozy, despite the Foreign Minister Alain Juppé claiming there were rather a lot more during his speech, which introduced the president. And they've got a nice cartoon inside Le Parisien, which has both candidates smiling and saying, "Woo, we've got 100,000," and some confused looking voter in the background going, hang on, so what's the difference then? But Le Parisien does say there was at least a marked difference between what their tones of their speeches and what they focused on yesterday. Sarkozy was much more focused on demonising his rival than Hollande was. He said Hollande wants to destroy France's middle classes and that if he wins, the country will be attacked by speculators from every direction. Something he's been talking about quite a lot recently, of course, here, about the fear that the markets will pounce on France if Hollande wins, because his economic programme is incredible, at least according to the right. So that, if you like, was his the main thread of his discourse, as Le Parisien puts it. He's trying to resuscitate still a flailing campaign with only a week to go, so he's going all out. Hollande, on the other hand, was much more focused on mobilising those who might naturally vote on the left, but he's worried might not actually turn out to vote. That is to say, he had a lot to say yesterday about the importance of voting, not just for him, but the importance of voting at all. He had a lot that was clearly directed at young people, at the working classes, at ethnic minorities. We've heard a lot of the socialists talking to these people over the last few days, rather, as they start to worry that low turnout will affect them most of all, because, of course, it's those people who are probably most naturally inclined to vote socialist who are also least likely to go to the polls, most likely to be among those third of French voters that some polls have been saying won't be voting at all. So he was very much trying to mobilise people. He's aware that lots of people have been saying that his campaign isn't inspiring enough, isn't really sparking much passion in voters' hearts, even the ones who desperately want to get rid of Nicolas Sarkozy. So it's those allegations really that he was trying to fight back against yesterday with a quite strongly impassioned speech, trying to force people to go out and vote. And for him, from the first round this Sunday, not of course for far-left candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is eating away at his votes.
It really sounded to me like he shouted himself hoarse even.
Yes, you could hardly hear him, and the microphone packed up at one moment. So
yeah, absolutely. So that's the Parisien's take on those rallies. Fairly neutral, you could say, but I imagine there are some other papers taking sides quite clearly.
Yes, Le Figaro have gone with the cover line this morning. Sarkozy, don't be afraid, they won't win. A quote from yesterday's speech. And in their editorial on this front page, they say that if you believe in looking to the past rather than the future, then you should have been at Vincennes, Hollande's rally yesterday. But if you believe in taking on the challenges that the future is going to face France with, then you should have been at Place de la Concorde, at Sarkozy. They, of course, evoke the same fear in their editorial that Sarkozy did yesterday, which is that Hollande's economic policy will be disastrous for France and he'll be pushed into a dangerously far left direction by Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And it looks like that fear of Mélenchon is going to be one of the key campaign angles that Sarkozy's team are going to take on this week.
What about the left-leaning papers then?
Well, over at Libération, they also have Sarkozy on the front page, but a rather different look at things. They say here that having a meeting at exactly the same time as François Hollande, trying to steal his thunder, doesn't disguise the amount of divisions going on within the right and the amount of people, at least according to them, within Sarkozy's own cabinet and his campaign team who already believe that the election can't be won. They say they can't agree on how far right they should be turning. Should they really be trying to clean up Marine Le Pen's voters, or should they be focusing on the centre, on the economy? What should they do? Should they defend Sarkozy's record, and his record, of course, of having supported Europe-wide austerity policies, something that Hollande strongly attacked and which goes down very well with voters, or should he be going in the other direction and trying to go for protectionism and focus on protecting French jobs? He doesn't really know. He keeps changing direction, their editorial says. He recently said he supported Hollande's policy of fixing limits on people's rents, whereas just a couple of weeks ago he called it Soviet. So he just doesn't seem to be able to go in a very clear direction. The Nouvel Observateur, which is also a left-leaning magazine, they say there was really a war of two Frances going on yesterday. On the one hand, you have the France of fear, is what they called Sarkozy's, the France that's joined together by a fear of crime, of immigration, and of the left, really. And on the other hand, you've got the France of anger and outrage, people who are angered at the amount of privilege a tiny minority of people have managed to collect, and some outrageously high salaries, and the misbehaviour of mad finance.
And finally, let's take a look at the, well, obviously the spotlight was on François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy, but they're not the only two candidates in this election, of course.
No, absolutely not, even though they had those big rallies yesterday. There are, of course, 10 candidates altogether, nearly all of whom had different rallies at this weekend, of course, with just a week to go. But Jean-Luc Mélenchon actually had the biggest, probably. Here he is on the front page of L'Humanité, which, of course, backs him all the way, the communist paper. His rally on the beach in Marseille yesterday was probably bigger than either Sarkozy's or Hollande's. So whether it was the sunshine or whether it was his left-wing radicalism that brought them all out, he certainly had a big meeting on the beach Saturday, in Marseille, when he had a lot to say about how the ethnic diversity of a city like Marseille has made it stronger, and he had a strong attack against Sarkozy's stigmatising of ethnic minorities.
Thank you very much, Elena. We'll have to wait a week then to find out just how convincing they were, if they managed to win over a few more supporters or not. Now, a quick reminder here on France 24 of the